What's going on, guys? It's Donovan from the top of the key, and I'm bringing you guys a brand new video with the NBA offseason pretty much all settled with LeBron going to the 76ers about a week ago. We will be analyzing and looking at all 30 teams' offseason moves, whether it was free agency deal, an extension, or a trade. And without further ado, let's start off with the Atlanta Hawks. Re-signing McCollum, Jacques Landale, adding guys like Dort, Wiggins, Ryan Nimhart, and trading away Zachary Richase. To go on Zachary Richase, it's an unfortunate situation for the Hawks, right? You were sandwiched in a year with Cooper Flag on this end and Victor Wembanyama on the other. So an unfortunate luck to get the first overall pick. However, there are guys like Stephon Castle and things like that. I don't think they're not going to lose sleep over trading away Richase. I do love getting Dort as their defensive lineup is already pretty well with guys like Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, and then adding a guy like Lou Dort with Onyeka Okongwu. I think this team is one of the deeper teams and has an all-around structure. I do like the re-signing of CJ McCollum. So I will give that a B. The Boston Celtics, most notably losing Jaylen Brown and Vucevic, with getting Paul George, Mitchell Robinson, and re-signing a couple other role players. I do not like this trade with trading away Jaylen Brown. I do think there was probably something internally with going on in the franchise that maybe we'll find out, maybe we won't. I do understand it was kind of a cap thing, and Paul George had a year or two on his contract, but trading away your Finals MVP, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, and a guy coming off of All NBA first team season, getting Paul George and a couple first round picks. Not the best. I'm going to give these guys a C minus. The Brooklyn Nets re-signing Josh Minott, Day'Ron Sharp, Keon Ellis, Randall, Mo Wagner. I don't know how to feel about this, right? The Nets, with all intents and purposes, are probably going to be tanking this year as well. I don't see this team or whatever roster that is assembled doing anything in the East. I do think the Eastern Conference is very deep, like we've talked about. I guess getting Randall, seeing if he can ball out, which he can. I'm going to give this C minus as well. Charlotte Hornets, I think, had one of the more interesting off seasons by trading away LaMelo Ball, most notably, but getting a lot of solid role players like re-signing Kobe White, Grayson Allen, DFS, Royce O'Neal, and Naz Reid. I love this Naz Reid addition. I love getting these 3-and-D guys like Royce O'Neal, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Grayson Allen. But I do think there will be a slight hit to this team. Obviously off the playmaking of LaMelo. But they are showing that they're going all in with guys like Brandon Miller and Con Knipple with a solid lineup around Moussa Diabate, Naz Reid, and a couple of these role players like we just mentioned. I'm going to give it a C, just flat C. The Chicago Bulls, Zach Collins, Nick Claxton, Norman Powell, and losing Colin Sexton. I do love their draft pick in the fourth pick. However, getting a guy like Norman Powell, I think offensively is going to be very, very impactful for this team. Right? With Giddey, coming to his own, I think a guy like Norman Powell can do some damage. I'll give them a C plus. The Cleveland Cavaliers, another interesting offseason. Yeah, they added Mario Hezonja instead of LeBron. But pretty much bringing the same band back together. Lost Keon Ellis, Dean Wade. I'm going to give this a C. The Dallas Mavericks looks pretty interesting, right? Like, but it's kind of a whole lot of it's kind of a whole lot of nothing. Santi Aldama, Rishase, losing Marvin Bagley, Chris Middleton. Not much. I do hope Kyrie comes back healthy and rejuvenated with Cooper Flag. I do hope Derek Lively also comes to his own. I'm going to give this offseason a C minus. The Denver Nuggets re-signed Tyus Jones, also Spencer Jones, who signed an offer sheet with Thunder, but Denver matched it, and they lost Tim Hardaway to the Heat. I do think that Tim Hardaway loss shouldn't be undermined. The shooting that he provided in certain spurts was really impactful, as he had lost Michael Porter Jr. the offseason prior. Pretty much same team, bringing the band back together. I'm going to give this specific offseason a D+. The Detroit Pistons, adding Javonte Green, Kevin Huerter. We don't know what's going to happen with Jalen Duren. I think he will return with the Pistons. Probably not for the price that he wants to, but they added John Collins, Gary Harris, Isaiah Joe, Torian Prince, but did lose Tobias Harris, Karis LeVert, Marcus Sasser, and Beef Stew. I really love this John Collins signing. I think he is a typical Detroit Piston player that is going to fit into whatever role JB Bickerstaff and crew has for him. However, losing that edge and toughness in Isaiah Stewart and a guy in Tobias Harris, who sometimes in the playoffs was their number one scorer to the Spurs, is a solid loss. But I will say, for what they got, I'm going to give this offseason a B minus. F. The Golden State Warriors deserve an F in this offseason. Do you guys see additions? It says NA. They re-signed all their guys that they needed to re-sign. Draymond, Horford, Porzingis. They put all their chips in the basket for LeBron James, and guess what? They didn't get him. Steph Curry, when healthy, top 10 player. And this is how you're going to... This is the roster. This is what you did in an offseason. And there have been reports that he has been kind of unsettled. And from a basketball standpoint, I want to see Steph Curry stay with the Golden State Warriors, because I do think it is a special thing staying with one franchise for your whole career. But if he wants to be like a guy like LeBron or KD, that is like saying, I don't really care about loyalty, I just want to win, go do that, Steph. But F minus. Houston Rockets re-signed Tari Eason, Jason Tate. I did like that Tari Eason deal. They're going to get back Fred VanVleet, which I do think is a key thing for them. But not really the craziest offseason. I don't think they needed to do a lot. I did like some of the shooting and a guy like Marcus Smart. So I'm going to give these guys a B. The Indiana Pacers added Larry Nance, Kelly Oubre, lost Cam Jones, and Micah Potter. I really do like this Kelly Oubre signing. I do think he's going to fit in perfectly well with this high-powered offense once the gears start running with that. Kelly Oubre is a great plug-and-play guy. They got Zubac in the trade deadline. They did lose their rights to that pick that turned into Keaton Wagler, which is pretty unfortunate. But for this specific offseason and for what they did, I'm going to give it a C+. Boy, oh boy, what didn't the Clippers get themselves involved in this offseason? Re-signed a couple of their guys. Lost Kawhi, lost John Collins, lost Bogdan, but brought in Brandon Ingram, Rui Hachimura, Grady Dick, and Janai Broom. I don't like this offseason from the Clippers. I do think they should have tried maybe one more year with Kawhi. But then again, I do think the Kawhi era happened and it's done. And I don't think there was a higher ceiling for it. I like him going back to Toronto, which we'll talk about later. BI and Rui and Grady Dick is a good return for your assets losing in Kawhi, but I do think it's still an L. So I'm going to give this offseason a C. The Los Angeles Lakers. There are a lot of names on this, but I don't like this offseason. I don't like what they did. I know they had to re-sign Reeves. I do think they overpaid for Grimes. I do think they overpaid for Walker Kessler in trade. I don't think giving up a first-round pick was worth it. Getting Colin Sexton, Matisse Thybulle, Sandro Mamashevsky for losing LeBron, Jackson Hayes, Marcus Smart, Rui Hachimura, DeAndre. Pretty much these guys, LeBron, Smart, Rui, the combination of Jackson Hayes, DeAndre Ayton, and Luke Kennard was a starting five potential lineup that occurred in the playoffs. Or a starting five that played meaningful minutes in the Western Conference semifinals. I don't like this offseason. I understand why these players had to leave, like LeBron. Completely get it. But for what they lost and what they got, I do think it's an L, and I do think it is a D+. The Memphis Grizzlies. I kind of like their offseason. If we're looking at the additions, Jeremy Grant, A.J. Johnson, D'Angelo Russell, Isaiah Stewart, and I understood they had lost John Morant. But I do think John Morant's trade value was little to none. They got a guy like Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray. You know, a sad, sad rise and fall for Ja. I am wishing him the best, but I'm going to give this offseason a C-. A C. Miami Heat. This is going to be our first B+, maybe. I love this offseason. They finally acquired a superstar player and re-signed Andrew Wiggins. Got Bobby Portis, obviously Giannis. I'm going to give this offseason a B+. I do like them being one of the best defensive teams we have seen in the modern era with Bam and Giannis. And I do think the shooting and all that will come into form through the season. Milwaukee Bucks. D-. D-. I do think they could have got a little more for Giannis. And I think there could have been maybe a better suitor. But maybe they did Giannis well by trading to a team that he wanted to go to. Gary Trent is getting investigated for the deal that he agreed upon. They added Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez, Karis LeVert, Khalil Ware. I do think it's going to be a fun team. But a fun team doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win a lot of games. I'm going to give this offseason a D-. Minnesota Timberwolves is my first A. Straight A. I love this offseason. I love the re-signings with Bones, Io, and Jalen Clark, and adding LaMelo Ball. I think this is going to be one of the best starting fives in the NBA. With LaMelo at the 1, maybe Io DeSumo at the 2, and Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert. This is going to be such a fun team. I love everything that this front office has done, so I'm going to give them an A. What is going on in New Orleans? Actually have no clue. They trade away their first round picks. They sign all these guys and they don't know what to do. Are they going all in? I have no clue. They did nothing and they pretty much traded away no one. They're running back the same roster that I think finished 14th or 13th in the Western Conference. Pretty mind-boggling. I don't know what Joe Dumars is cooking. The New York Knicks, the reigning NBA champions, re-sign, Clarkson, Shamet, added Drummond, Balas Mitchell-Robinson. No harm, no foul in this offseason. I'm going to give this offseason a B-. The Oklahoma City Thunder needed to do needed to make the moves that they had in their departures with Lou Dort, Isaiah Joe, and Aaron Wiggins to avoid the second apron and signed Isaiah Hardenstein to a pretty friendly deal. Also, re-signed Kendrick Williams. For the offseason, I'm going to give this a C+. The Orlando Magic. The return of Vucevic. I guess it's a Mo Wagner replacement. Re-signed Jonathan Isaac. Javon Carter. Not much to talk about. I do like their roster that they already had, so I'm glad they didn't change too much about it. And with that, I'm going to give them a C. The Philadelphia 76ers had an A+ offseason. They re-signed no one. However, they added Jaylen Brown, LeBron James, Anthony Simons, Dean Wade, and Hukporti. And for that, they lost Kelly Oubre, Dalen Terry, Quentin Grimes, Paul George, Andre Drummond, Janai Broom. It will definitely be a change, right, of roster. But for the guys and superstars that they got in LeBron, Jaylen Brown, and I love this Anthony Simons deal. It was not a large deal. It's not shown on the screen, but it was a team-friendly deal. And he's going to provide great scoring off the bench. And this 7-8 man lineup that the 76ers are going to have, they also have the best starting lineup in the NBA. This is a force to be reckoned with, and they cooked. The Phoenix Suns offseason re-signed Colin Gillespie, Jordan Goodwin, Mark Williams, added Miles Bridges, Luke Kennard, but lost guys like Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal. With their additions and departures, I think it kind of evens out. I do like their re-signings, so I'm going to give the Phoenix Suns a B-. The Portland Trailblazers, I love this offseason. And for that, I'm going to give them an A-. My reasoning, first of all, re-signing Robert Williams. Only losing Jeremy Grant, Chris Murray, Matisse Thybulle, guys that didn't seem like they wanted to buy into what they were building in Portland, and adding Ja and getting Dame back from injury. I like this team. I like this offseason. I'm going to give it an A-. Sacramento Kings didn't really do anything. I'm looking at departures and re-signings. I think this is going to be a tanking team. I do not want to see them win more than 20 games. The San Antonio Spurs. I'm going to give this offseason an A. My reasoning is for Victor Wembanyama taking a team-friendly deal, not taking up as much money as he probably should have and as much as he's worth, and adding Tobias Harris, a great veteran presence to this team that sometimes in the NBA Finals showed that guys like Keldon Johnson weren't answering the bell, and so a guy like Tobias had shown in the playoffs this year he did. The Toronto Raptors, I'm going to give these guys an A+. I love this offseason, mainly just for getting Kawhi. But for what they had given up, not really the most. Brandon Ingram sometimes in the playoffs was unplayable. And to get rid of him and to get Kawhi, the deal is on hold because there's an investigation going on about Kawhi. But I like what they're building in Toronto, and I'm going to give them an A. The Utah Jazz, an interesting offseason, re-signing Mo Bamba, Yusuf Nurkic, adding Jackson Hayes, but losing Walker Kessler. I like what they did in the draft by getting DeBonsa. I'm going to give it a C. The Washington Wizards might be my next A+ and my last A+ and the last rating of this video. But they re-signed Trey, I guess, a deal that happened in the trade deadline. But without a doubt, they re-signed Trey, added DeAndre Ayton and Chris Middleton. But I loved what they did with AJ DeBonsa in the draft. And it's looking like Anthony Davis is going to be a key member of this team. And so for that, I'm going to give their offseason A+. I'm very excited about this team. I have them as a 40+ win team in the upcoming NBA season. But let me know what you guys think about what these teams did in the offseason, the winners, the losers. And other than that, it's been Donovan from the top of the key. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.